welcome everyone to my short video. Hopefully it's going to be short. I'll try and keep it short on sitting with distressing emotions. I did say that I would make a video on this topic because I know it's something that lots of people struggle with, and it crosses, the whole gamut from people experiencing mental distress, having those diagnoses of mental illness, all the way through to just anyone out there who is trying to evolve and grow spiritually, because integrating negative emotions is critical for our own ascension, that is our own spiritual growth into a state of well-being, peace and bliss. Now we all would say, I'm sure, that that's exactly what we want, but very often it feels like no matter how much we strive for it and we, tick our boxes, meditate, eat good food, or try to construct a happy life around us, if inside of us we are repressing and sitting on a lot of negative emotions, it's going to feel like we're sabotaging ourselves somehow. So, we might try to run away from those emotions. That's generally what people do, because many of us, I'd say most people, haven't been taught how to actually sit with emotions and how to honor and respect them. And there's so much trauma on the planet that a lot of people are very dissociated from their bodies. So they're not even aware necessarily that they have these emotions. Emotions are close to the physical, so the emotional body is very close to the physical body. Of course, it's all interconnected, but to help us understand, we can kind of imagine it as 4 layers. There's the physical body, which is the densest part of our being. Then there's the emotional body, the mental body, and the energetic, spiritual or etheric body. The kind of metaphysical, the non-manifest. We can't see that part of ourselves, but it is there. So emotions are close to the physical body. The emotional body is, we feel an emotion and it presents in our body. But if we're cut off from our bodies, if we're not used to tuning in and hearing the messages, we may not realize that knot in our stomach is anger or anxiety, or we might not let ourselves cry. Like, the body may want to cry and release the emotion, but we've been taught there's like a neural network in our brain through habit and conditioning when we were little that says crying is not okay, or don't show your distress because no one's there to hear it. We get so many really awful messages about the nature of emotions when we're little. So this just takes quite a lot of practice, guys. I do want to say, almost all of my videos, I end up saying this somewhere along the line, that this is going to be some hard work. It's going to be some, you've really got to practice it, because you're rewiring your whole body-mind complex, the whole system, the whole being. It's heroic work and it's 100% worth it. I really want to encourage you to practice some of the tools that I give you today. Keep exploring this topic. Learn to really understand yourself. Learn to really go within and find out what's in there and bring all aspects to the light of your consciousness. This is overall what we would call integration, and I've spoken a lot about integration in my Journey to Integration series. It's 3 videos on how to work with all the aspects within and how to integrate them. So integration for me means, I suppose, it's about owning or bringing those aspects that were hidden to the light of consciousness, and simultaneously not resisting or rejecting them. So the opposite of that might be owning or embracing them. So that's what you're aiming to do with your negative emotions. And the thing is, even though intuitively we want to get the hell away from them as fast as we can, because, who wants to feel, a lifetime of guilt that's kind of sitting in the back of your mind, or, somewhere deep in your psyche? Who wants to open up that awful box of guilt and look and see it, look at it? It's not pleasant sometimes, especially if we haven't dealt with this stuff for years and years. But probably many of you will have also discovered that the opposite strategy, which is running away from it, doesn't work. So, for me, there was a pattern, a string of addictions throughout the first 20 years of my adult life, all designed as coping strategies to get all the hell away from these emotions that I didn't even know I was feeling. So I don't blame myself. I'm not chastising myself, but I had like a very low emotional IQ. I didn't feel my anger. I would go, if someone sort of threatened my boundaries, I would go straight to anxiety and to feeling upset. So some emotions I was aware of and I would feel, but generally, it was only short-lived feeling, and it wasn't really integration. It was just like, right, what can I do to get away from this? Okay, I'll drink, or I'll overwork, or I'll overeat, or I even turned exercise into an addiction. I was very, very fit at one stage, and I over-exercised. So, we'll probably find ourselves doing a lot of things which keep us distracted. That's the whole thing. So the analogy that's quite useful to think of with the negative emotions, and I'm borrowing this analogy from Teal Swan. I do encourage people to have a look at some of her work. She very succinctly explains how these things work in the body and the mind, and her videos are a lot shorter than mine. So if you find my videos a little bit long, do check Teal out. I'll put a link down below. So I remember watching one of her videos, and she spoke about it like a tornado. The emotions are this tornado. And yes, we want to run away from a tornado, right? Everyone thinks it's a scary thing. But when you just stop and let the tornado come to you and literally engulf you, the place that you end up in, if you can just hang on long enough and trust the process, is this beautiful still point within that tornado, which is a center of stillness. And it's the eye of the storm, the peace and the calm that kind of exists right in the middle of it. Now, I have gone into this place so many times throughout a 7-year period of intense recovery from major mental illness that I've gone through in the last decade. And I've 100% learned to trust this and to know that if I just stop and feel what I'm feeling, and I do it, well enough, I guess, like I drop my judgments and I drop my resistance and I drop everything. I give it time, because this requires you, I guess, to just put pause button on life for a second. Not for a second, more like a few hours. You're probably going to need a few hours. You might even need weeks or months sometimes to integrate some of the really intense stuff that's sitting in there. But if nowadays, most of the time, if I feel a strong emotion coming, I press pause on life. I find my sacred space, my peaceful, where I feel the safest and the most calm, where I can rest. And I curl up and I just feel what I'm feeling. And as you get deeper and deeper into it, what happens is you start to drop the language and the thoughts and the story, I guess, that goes on with it, and you just fall into the emotion. And you go, oh, I'm just feeling anger. This is what anger feels like in its purest state. Or this is what grief feels like. And you might express it. You might be lots and lots of tears. You might be yelling, cursing, hitting things. Whatever is coming up for you is also good to feel. Expressing the emotion alongside feeling it, but you don't have to express it. I've also found that as I've got better with this, I can actually just tune into my body, feel the emotion without even needing to externalize it. So yeah. So what I thought I would do is, I've got my own model, I guess, of how this works is simply to like I've said, to stop. Now, to label the feeling is something I would do in the very early stages, because we don't sometimes have the vocabulary. We can be a little bit emotionally inarticulate in our cultures. I don't know for all cultures, but certainly for the Western / British heritage that's in my blood and my DNA, there's a lot of repression of emotions and denial of emotions. So, to find the right language for the right different emotions was helpful for me at one point. You can have a look up online, emotional vocabulary. Just Google those 2 words and you'll find all sorts of lists that have been compiled that'll give you some really good language to label and name the feeling that you're feeling. To just hone in on it, because anger, there's lots of different words for anger. There's frustration, there's irritation, there's rage. There's loathing. All of these words have slightly different meanings, slightly different frequencies, and if you can hone in on the exact frequency, the exact meaning, that may help you understand the analysis of it, which I'll get to in a sec. Because what I want to do is, as I said, I've got the way that I've done it, but I thought it might be really useful to look at another model, which I think is probably better even than what I had in my head. And it comes from, I don't know if any of you follow Magenta Pixie. She's a beautiful soul in the UK that is channeling a group of beings from, I think it might be, I'm not sure, one of the much higher dimensions anyway, or densities of consciousness. This group is called the White-Winged Collective Consciousness of 9. That's what Magenta Pixie calls them. The channelings are very profound, very deep. They're here to assist us with our spiritual growth at the moment on this planet. And you can tune into Magenta's videos for some very powerful words that she channels, or you can also get her books. So I've got both of her books. This one here is Masters of the Matrix, which I'll show you. Masters of the Matrix. So this book here, the matrix being it's the fabric, it's the manifested fabric of reality. It's what appears to us. It's the codes that create what we see. And not only is there one for the planet Earth, which is the collective matrix that we all live in, there's also a personal matrix that we create through our own belief systems, our own work that we do with our emotions, and all of our thoughts, beliefs, everything we are creates our matrix. So I won't go into that in too depth because it's quite technical and difficult to understand, but I do recommend this book very much. And one of the most important aspects of becoming a master of your matrix is to integrate your emotions. So this is important work for your spiritual growth, as well as your peace of mind, as well as your emotional and mental well-being and balance. So the techniques or the steps that the Collective Consciousness of 9, Magenta Pixie's channeling, the steps that they recommend are fourfold, and I would agree with these. I think it's, like I said, it's a useful model. It's a little bit more structured than anything I had come up with for my own experiences, but it certainly is basically what I did. So the first step is awareness. That's step 1. So it's to become aware, first of all, that you're feeling anything at all. Because like I said, a lot of us have actually cut ourselves off from our feeling bodies, from our physical and emotional bodies. We might have a tendency to be very in the head and to be thinking of things all the time. We can run away from it in myriad ways. So awareness is really critical. And this is a training that you're going to do, which will set you up for, it's a like foundational training for spiritual growth is awareness, self-awareness. And if it's something that you're terrible at, which, hey, no judgment, like we're all we weren't taught this stuff in primary school, right? We weren't taught mindfulness or being aware, and I think maybe things are changing a little bit, but, if this is something you struggle with, I highly recommend you enroll yourself in a mindfulness course. This is like the catch cry or I suppose it's in mental health. It's the very popular framework that they're using to train people to go within and train people to sit with their distress and their discomfort. So that might be useful for you. Mindfulness trains you to become aware of those thoughts that you're having, of the feelings, of the sensations of sitting on the couch, getting back in touch with yourself without judgment, without needing to analyze it or fix it or change it or resist it. So, you know, if you can cultivate a practice of mindfulness, maybe through a meditation or something that you do every day, or you know, write post-it notes to yourself and stick them all over the house to remind you to check in with your body. It's now second nature to me. Like, I will tune into myself constantly all day. Where am I? How am I feeling? You know, it really has become second nature. But when I contrast that with probably 7-8 years ago, I wasn't in touch with that at all. So I do understand that there's a spectrum of people listening to this, watching this. You'll all be at different places in that journey. But awareness is the first thing. So as you feel a feeling come up during the day, or any sort of discomfort even, just sit with it for a moment and just think, what is it? Label it, you know, and or feel it if you can. But if you can't feel it yet, just try to label it, try to give it a name. So that's the first step. The second step that they talk about is an interesting one, which people might struggle with, but it's called gratitude. That's their second step. So I think this is important, but I also think it's possibly a leap for some people to go to gratitude with a lot of these emotions that they've been trying to run away from for so long. The last thing you might feel is gratitude. So you might want to think about other ways of phrasing it, because really gratitude is an attitude where you recognize that what has come to you for a benevolent reason, for a reason of your highest good. As a teacher, a guide, these emotions are carrying messages for us. They are also asking for our attention so that they can be integrated and released, so that we can have peace. So, you know, now I see when I do have negative emotions come up, it's not something to be fought, it's actually something to be welcomed. So that might be a word that sits a bit better for you, welcomed, rather than gratitude. Another way of sort of phrasing it is to think, how is this serving me? Because everything that comes to you is serving you on some level. So how is this emotion serving me? You know, guilt, for example. Guilt may be warranted or unwarranted. You know, there's many times when we feel guilt that actually kind of, like, when we reflect honestly on it, maybe we've got some really good reasons why we feel guilty. Maybe there are a lot of regrets that we've got in life. Maybe we did things that we feel hurt people or have hurt the planet. So this guilt is calling us to acknowledge that. Yeah. So how is it serving me? And from that place, you can hopefully get to gratitude. If you can get to gratitude, wonderful, because gratitude is one of the most powerful emotional frequencies to cultivate. Gratitude will, I suppose, what it almost does is it creates a beautiful patterning in your matrix, in that field that I was talking about before that we each have, and that it's a peaceful sort of a field that develops around you when you're in a state of gratitude, and from that peaceful place, it's much easier to manifest what we do want. So it's a sort of irony of being grateful for what we have right now, in order to create space for what we do want. Which actually brings me to a quick side point, which is that some people think that sitting with distress means that we're surrendering to the emotion and therefore it'll never leave us. You know, if I surrender to this guilt, I'm just going to be wallowing in it forever and it'll never go away. So that fear may come up for you, and I would just suggest that you treat yourself as a bit of a science experiment. Play around with these tools I'm giving you in a very sincere way, and see if that's true. Just challenge yourself to see if that's true, because I certainly had that fear. I didn't want to go anywhere near these feelings, but I found that the quicker and the deeper I would surrender into them, then poof, they would sort of be released. Their energy, they just want to be transmuted through you. You can imagine yourself like you're a giant filter, and you might be a bit clogged. The filter might be clogged. You know, there's a lot of litter down there, a leaf litter or whatever. If you're a filter in the water, collected a lot of leaf litter. So this integration process allows you to clean yourself out, literally, of these emotions, and then you become a very pure vessel for energy and spirit. And that's when things get interesting and magical. So this work is well worth it. Okay, so that's gratitude. Now, hopefully you've understood that part of it. I know it's a bit challenging. The third step is analysis. So this is where you work out, all right, so you might say, this emotion is serving me, that's gratitude. Analysis is, why is this emotion serving me? So what is it telling me? What is the message? And initially for me, when I asked this question and I analysed why I was holding these emotions, all roads seemed to constantly lead back to my childhood, to a lot of things that I'd been holding on from old patterns that I'd learned then, old grievances, hurts, wounds. And those grievances and wounds can be like really profoundly intense, the emotions that are stored in there. Because as children, you know, it's easy to sort of objectively look at it and go, oh, well, you know, this thing happened, you got picked on at school, big deal, everyone gets picked on, and we kind of minimize it. And that's the mental state. But when we tune into how we actually felt as a little kid in those moments of, let's say, getting picked on at school, the wounding was intense because we're little and we don't have the analytical capacity to say, oh, well, you know, those kids are, I don't know, jealous of me or something, you know. That's the kind of explanation we might get from our adults around us when we go and seek comfort from them. But we just feel wounded. And, you know, that's getting to the purity of those feelings. I just feel really hurt. And, okay, I was 5 years old and it was a little thing. You know, I'm sure we've all got these stories. I remember being picked on because I didn't wear nail polish, and the cool girls were playing on the jungle gym and they wouldn't let me on the jungle gym because I didn't have nail polish. So I remember trying to lie to them and telling them that I had clear nail polish. But they still wouldn't let me on, you know, and I carried that, like that wounded little girl. That memory is a direct link into ostracization. Now, ostracization is an emotion, it's an intense emotion. To feel unwanted and rejected by a tribe or a group of people is, it's in our genetic coding, it's in our DNA, it's in our ancestral memory. It's one of our deepest fears, which goes back to being ousted from the tribe in the primal, you know, indigenous times, or, you know, when we were hunter-gatherer, you couldn't survive on your own. So, you know, even now we hold that fear, and you know, understanding that we want to belong. It might be an ancestral fear from the past, or it could also be a fear that has arisen because we actually come from celestial realms where unity consciousness is the norm, and everybody cares for one another, and belonging is a given. There's no one that doesn't belong. Certainly not from Source's perspective. We all belong. We're all valuable. And we're all a part of the one. So if we've incarnated here into this earthly experience where not everyone accepts everyone and there's a lot of judgment and fear, well, that's going to be extremely distressing to a sensitive soul. So, well, you can see what I've just done there actually. I've analysed it, haven't I? I've looked at that emotion of ostracization and I've analysed why. Now, I might have been triggered into that feeling of ostracization as an adult, and, you know, my process connected it to the memory of childhood, and then I've gone even deeper and I've connected it to perhaps ancestral memory or to celestial memory. So, you know, there's a whole pile of analysis right there. And, you know, in doing so, I can relieve myself of the burden of feeling like there's something gravely wrong with me for feeling that emotion in the first place. Acknowledging that this is normal, it's a part of being here on this earth plane, and, you know, integration is one of the greatest gifts you can give the rest of humanity, is when you spend time healing and working on yourself. You know, this is a type of service. So, again, that's another aspect of analysis. This is all the mental plane operating. You know, the emotion is there raw, and when felt in its purest, there is no explanation needed. It just is. But we also need the mental body to kind of come online to help us form a narrative, help us make meaning out of this experience. Because otherwise what you might find if you don't do the analysis part is that you feel the emotion, but the mental side of you will freak out. It will try to convince you that this isn't worth it. What are you doing? It will want to run. So I guess the analysis is a way of bringing the mental self on board and again integrating it, because you need all of these 4 bodies to be working together in sync: the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual etheric. So that's step 3. Step 4 is integration. So that is the feeling of it, the full feeling of this emotion. And I suppose it's taking all of those 3 prior steps, pulling them all together, and then feeling and being with that. And that's where, I was talking before about simply being with that feeling, spending some time with it, allowing yourself to feel it as deeply as possible. And I know it feels like you're going against your intuition, which is to run away from it. But like I said, if you can try to do this, you'll start to trust this process and realize, oh, when I'm distressed, I've actually got a really useful tool. I know exactly what to do. And your body does know exactly what to do. If your mind just releases its grip on trying to control your experience, just for a few hours, you'll find that your body, because that's such a automatic part of you, like there's a billion cells doing all sorts of things in our unconscious every day, and that it knows exactly how to do it. It also knows how to clear out trauma and clear out negative emotions. So if your mind can just release the grip of control, it will then learn to trust the physical body and the emotional body that, it's okay to feel, it's okay to cry, it's okay to feel all of these things. So I just wanted to read you a little section from this book to help integrate what we've just learned, because they just succinctly corroborate, I guess, some of the things that I've been saying. I just want to... Okay. So what I might do is I'll read the section here called Shadow Trauma, which this speaks to if you're trying to analyze an emotion and you literally have no idea where it comes from. Like, I don't know why I'm feeling this way. Okay, so this in itself is useful as well, and they call this shadow trauma. So they write, within an analysis, one may decide that they do not know why they are feeling a certain emotion. If this is the case, then you are working with a buried issue or shadow trauma. The more unraveling you do through analysis, the more the reasons for the emotion in the first place will make themselves clear to you. Within the analysis may come many realizations, and other emotions may come up for you. So this is the can of worms. If you really, I don't know why I got this emotion at all, you're probably going to have a bit of analysis work to do, and like they say, it might bring up a lot of other stuff as well, a lot of memories, a lot of feelings. The gratitude, forgiveness, and other resolutions to the original emotion are healthy aspects to the overall analysis. They are healing and are not the same thing as replacing or bypassing the emotion with another. So that's another good point. I guess this is a bit of a trap that people can get into when they're working with this stuff and they're like, I'm feeling anger and I know I should be grateful because that's step 2. So I'm going to kind of push the anger down and try to feel gratitude. And that's not quite what we're going for. It's a really tricky balance between feeling the emotion and sort of cultivating almost an observer aspect of yourself that can kind of watch you go through that experience of feeling that anger. And that part is the part that holds the gratitude and holds the compassion and holds the forgiveness. So it's like cultivating this really beautiful part that I would call the compassionate witness to your own experiences. So you're sort of it may feel like you're fragmenting yourself almost. You've got your human component, your in the body little Louisa, who's feeling the feeling of anger. Meanwhile, there's another aspect of yourself that's kind of like watching that, and that's a very healthy thing to do. That is the path to experiencing yourself as a multidimensional being, because we actually are operating on all these different levels simultaneously. And as our awareness expands, we're going to start to feel that pretty much all the time. There's going to be this sense of seeing things from multiple perspectives. So then they go on to say, it may be in time that you become adept at moving through the stages of emotional integration very quickly, in which case it may seem as though you are bypassing or replacing the original emotion. But as long as you have been through the steps of recognition, naming, that's awareness, gratitude and analysis, then this is a healthy process that sends an aligned signal to your matrix. The signals you send are those of integrity, spiritual commitment, discipline, alignment, growth and expansion, as well as the emotions expressed, as you move through the unraveling process of emotional integration. So what they kind of go on, and I won't go too much deeper into this because I can see myself then having to explain some very complex aspects of how our being works with this matrix field idea. But just in a nutshell, if we don't integrate our emotions, if we don't feel them and we just bury them and deny them and pretend they aren't there, what kind of happens is those emotions continue to exert an influence on this field, on this matrix, and we keep calling experiences to ourselves that are going to fire up those emotions in order that we can resolve them. So we're kind of attracting situations that will stir up that anger, or the world will be littered with triggers, like a minefield for some of us, of triggers that will trigger these emotions. And the more we try to run away from it, the more triggers will come up, because that's the sort of irony of how running away doesn't work at all. Because ultimately your body wants to heal, your body-mind wants to heal. So it will seek out these experiences to help it heal. So if you don't integrate, it'll project into the field and it will create experiences that bring you to face these emotions eventually. Now, if you do integrate, the opposite happens. You start to clear your field because, and as it says there, you're sending out, rather than sending out signals of, an unconscious signal of, hey, bring me a situation that creates some anger so I can resolve it. What you're doing is you're sending out a signal of alignment, of spiritual integrity, of growth, of expansion, of all those things that they talked about, because you're actually willing to move beyond that feeling. You're not bypassing it, but by feeling it, you're saying, all right, I'm willing to learn this lesson now. And, once you've learnt it enough so that the emotional charge goes out of that emotion, in the sense of it's not weighted with the memories and years and years and years of repression, you'll find that you'll free yourself up for other experiences. Maybe a nice analogy is, because this is an earth school and we're learning here, and so we can understand this analogy of the classrooms. And if you are in a certain grade and there's this particular subject that you have to wrap your head around so you can get to the next grade, but you keep refusing to look at the subject or even open the textbook, well, of course, what's going to happen is you'll keep failing that grade and you'll have to come back again and again until you finally have a look at that textbook. So it's a little bit the same with this emotional stuff, like emotional topic, Emotions 101, your textbook on anger, or your textbook on guilt, or your textbook on, it's your personal textbook. These books are our own records of our experiences, and until we stop and we look at them and we learn from them, we can't move on, we can't go up the next grade. So not that I want to make you feel like you're all failing, because that certainly isn't the case. And I'm also always reassuring reassuring people that there is a divine timing for this. You will know when you are ready. And this is where these videos are really just designed to stimulate and seed the idea in you. And if that seed lies dormant for several years, that's okay as well, because you will know and you will feel inspired. Right, now's the time and I'm going to deal with this stuff. So that's another aspect of really trusting yourself, really tuning in to, is this the right time? Maybe it isn't. Maybe it's better to distract yourself and keep busy or whatever, because sometimes if the stuff is very, very dark and the memories are really overwhelming and there's a lot of trauma, it can destabilize you for a while. There's no doubt about that. So take it at your own pace, trust yourself, work with somebody if you feel like you need that support. I had an entire entourage at one point helping me, including hospital systems and doctors and therapists and all sorts of things. So if that's where you're at, then that's where you're at as well. So some of us won't need that level of support, and we can simply do it each day as it comes up, or whenever we need to. So so just I'll give you one last quick exercise, which I feel is also a really handy tool, and I'm going to pay my respects to Andrew Martin, who's another fabulous speaker on spiritual growth and ascension. So the scanning of the various bodies can help you just tune in if you're having trouble building the awareness around this stuff. As soon as you feel that little bit of discomfort, stop, do a body scan. So you're scanning your entire physical body, is really tuning in. Is there any creaks or aches or burning pain or slight discomfort, whatever it is, you just doing a scan and you're taking note of that. And then you do it with your emotional body and think, what am I feeling? What's in there? And it might not be a specific feeling, because it could be a whole bunch of feelings all muddled up together. But whatever it is, just feel it. Where is it in the body? What could it be? So you do that with the emotional body, and then you do that with the mental body. What thoughts are going on in my mind? Where is my mind going to? Is it memories? Is it future? Is it worries? And you finally do that with your energetic body. So this one is a little bit hard to describe, actually, scanning your energetic body, because it defies the language of the mental body. It isn't emotional, it's not physical, but the way that I suppose I think of it or conceptualize it is how expanded is my energy field, because that I can feel whether I'm contracted or expanded. And I can also utilize what I call the language of light, and that's often what it's called. Images will come to me, symbols which will show me how my energetic body is doing. So I might get patterns of rainbows, for example, if I'm feeling expanded and in sync and excited. Usually I get rainbows if I'm excited energetically. I might get a very clear geometric pattern that shows me that I'm in a state of peace. Or I might feel heavy and contracted. So the language that I use for the energetic body is a bit different. It's more visual. So yeah, that's also something for another video, perhaps, the language of light and the energetic body. But seeing as the focus is the emotional body today and sitting with distressing emotions, I think I'll leave it there. It's probably gone long enough. So I hope that was really useful for you. And just be with yourself. Don't abandon yourself. This is the ability to sit with what is happening for you right now is very, very powerful. And every single time you do it, you demonstrate an allegiance to self, a love for self, and you make another little step towards wholeness, integration, and healing. So that is my wish for you. And yeah, be happy to hear from you in the comment section, or if you have any other topics that you'd like me to speak about, please let me know. You can find me on my website or on Facebook. So much love to everybody, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.